You know that feeling, right? You pick up a thrilling new novel, the cover practically screaming with promises of pulse-pounding suspense, intricate plots, and that ultimate mind-bending reveal. You're bracing for the twists, the turns, the aha moments, but then sometimes you find yourself just a little disconnected. Maybe the threads unravel, the characters start to blur, and that anticipated aha becomes more of a huh, or even, well, and I give up. Well, today our deep dive takes us right into that experience. We're getting a critical look at a specific book, Blood Brother by J.A. Kerley, and we're viewing it through the very insightful lens of one of your reviews. This isn't just about one novel, though. It's really about dissecting what makes a genre thriller truly gripping, and maybe where even the most promising setups can sometimes, unfortunately, go off the rails, leave readers feeling a bit shortchanged. So our mission today is to unpack all the nuggets from this particular review. We're going to extract key insights about the incredibly delicate balance authors must strike. You know, character management, plot cohesion, how narrative satisfaction plays into everything, and that crucial tightrope walk between creating intrigue and maintaining crystal clear clarity. Because as we'll see, a really compelling premise isn't always enough, is it? It doesn't always carry a story through to a truly fulfilling conclusion.
Yeah, that's so true. And what's fascinating here is how a reader's journey through a book, especially in a genre as demanding as a thriller, it's so dependent on these underlying structural and craft elements. When those elements falter, even a really compelling core idea can struggle to connect. It leads to that feeling of disconnection you mentioned. It's about more than just the idea. It's about the execution, really.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So let's kick off with the very foundation of Blood Brother. I mean, the core premise sounds incredibly compelling, doesn't it? You have a main cop who also happens to be a psychiatrist, okay? And he suspects the murderer is none other than his own brother. I mean, talk about deeply personal stakes. That immediately promises an intense emotional cat and mouse chase right from the get-go. But from your perspective, what are the immediate traps an author needs to avoid when setting up stakes that are that personal?
Well, that's a great question because, yeah, such a premise is absolute gold for tension. But it also creates really high expectations. And the first major critique from the review, it immediately points to a significant challenge introduced right alongside that intriguing premise. It's the sheer number of characters and their lack of clear distinction. The reviewer noted so many names, and crucially, all of them were cops, which apparently made their personalities not that different. So this abundance of similar characters, it made it a challenge to track each one. It actually led the reviewer to admit they eventually gave up and started reading it with my mind turned off, which is, not what you want. And this highlights a really crucial principle in character development, especially in thrillers where, let's face it, information overload can quickly become a problem. When characters lack distinctiveness, a reader's cognitive load that's, the mental effort required to process everything, it just increases exponentially. If you're constantly backtracking, trying to remember who said what or who's on which side, it pulls you right out of the immersive experience the thriller is trying so hard to create. It's not enough to just give them names. You have to give them unique voices, quirks, clear motivations, something.
Oh, I can absolutely relate to that. If I can't keep track of who's who, the whole tension just deflates, it evaporates, and I feel like I'm doing work instead of enjoying a story. So as a reader, how crucial is it for you to clearly distinguish characters? Especially in a fast-paced thriller where you're juggling clues and motives. Is it about their backstory, their dialogue, or is it something else entirely?
Well, it's a combination, definitely, but I'd say voice and immediate role are paramount. This isn't just about having clear attributions in dialogue, like he said, she said. It's about developing distinct character voices. Unique cadences, vocabulary, speech patterns, stuff that lets the reader identify the speaker even without a tag. When all characters speak the same language, as the reviewer implies these cops did, well, that often signals a lack of this crucial authorial attention to individual voice. And in a genre packed with similar roles, like police officers, authors need to work, twice as hard to give each character a unique identifier. Maybe it's a specific habit, a catchphrase, or just a particular way of thinking that sets them apart. Without that deliberate differentiation, readers simply can't invest, can they? They can't invest in their individual journeys or understand their stakes properly.
That's a really powerful point, yeah. It's about more than just names on a page. It's about truly individualizing them. Okay, now let's dive into the plot itself. The story is built around this classic cat and mouse chase, which, is usually a winner. And here, it has that extra intriguing detail. The mouse was a little smart and related to the cat. That kind of relationship, it usually ratchets up the tension and the emotional stakes beautifully, makes it personal.
It should, absolutely, in theory. It
Okay.
should create that intense personal drama. But the review describes a plot that, well, it quickly becomes incredibly convoluted. It introduces layers that seem to diffuse rather than focus the central conflict. So we learn that the criminal brother escapes from prison with the help of his psychiatrist,
Okay.
who also had a fling with the secondary cop in the story.
Oh, wow.
Right. Then the main cop falls in love with another psychiatrist who's also involved in the case. And here's where it gets really interesting, maybe a bit baffling. The criminal brother actually joins the investigation team.
Wait, what? He joins the team hunting him?
Uh-huh. But he never tells them that it is his brother who is doing the crimes. Instead, he just sort of gives them hints. Eventually, the main cop realizes the criminal brother is specifically giving him clues on how to find him. And the layers of complexity, they don't stop there. At what's supposed to be the climax, they finally meet. The criminal brother reveals his motives and, get this, unexpectedly, the existence of a mentor who is guiding the brother.
A mentor. Where did he come from?
It's exactly. This leads to a fight between the mentor and student, and then the criminal brother just runs away. And this entire sequence, it's complicated further by what the reviewer calls incompetent police. Apparently, the department is always late to crucial scenes. And even more striking, the police team was so stupid that they could not see the team member, the brother, who was giving so much information about the criminal and was always right about what the criminal was going to do, maybe having some link to the criminal. Yeah. The reviewer says no one tried to investigate. And to top it off, the secondary cop. He found out about the criminal brother's involvement, but didn't tell anyone because he was involved with the victim.
That is an astonishingly convoluted chain of events. I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I mean, the criminal brother joining the investigation team and then running away at the climax, leaving a newly introduced mentor behind to die as the culprit. When a plot tangles itself up in such a way, what's the typical impact on the reader's ability to follow that central tension you mentioned earlier? Does it just risk losing its core emotional impact, even if some individual elements are clever?
Oh, it absolutely risks losing that core impact. There's such a fine line, isn't there, between a complex, multi-layered plot and one that becomes simply confusing. When you introduce so many tangential elements, the multiple love interests, the sudden mentor, the police incompetence that really strains belief, the narrative thrust of the central cat and mouse chase just gets diluted massively. Instead of building tension, it creates a diffusion of focus. It makes it hard for the reader to maintain a clear sense of who the true antagonist is, what the real stakes are, and frankly, where the story is actually heading. It feels less like intentional intricacy and more like, I don't know, narrative convenience or maybe just a lack of clear focus. And that can leave readers feeling really detached.
Yeah, I can see why that would be incredibly frustrating as a reader. You just lose the thread. And that brings us to a really critical observation from the review: the lack of confidence in the writing when it came to the book's conclusion. That's quite a powerful statement about how an author navigates that final act.
It truly is. The reviewer felt that the doors were open for many endings,
Okay.
citing possibilities hinted at throughout the story. They suggested it could have been that maybe the cop brother was the real criminal, maybe the criminal brother had multiple personality disorder, or maybe they both were playing as a team. Intriguing possibilities, right?
Definitely.
But the review noted that until the last few pages, all the options were open, which, creates a sense of authorial indecision rather than deliberate ambiguity. It feels like the author, perhaps, pulled back from committing to any of these really interesting possibilities that were supposedly woven into the narrative. And the contrast with the actual ending, as described by the reviewer, is just stark. The person who was on the pages for about 4% of the book dies as the primary culprit. That's the mentor.
The mentor.
Right. Meanwhile, the main criminal, the brother, the one who was everywhere and the police were tracking, ran away. So the review concludes, flat out, there is no solid conclusion. And while some might argue, a few people might say it is good that you cannot guess the climax till the end, the reviewer stressed that for it to be truly good, it should also be good in hindsight as well. And in this specific case, they felt other endings would have been more suitable as they fit better with the overall story. This really underscores the crucial difference between just a surprise twist and an earned revelation. A twist might shock you in the moment, but an earned revelation satisfies because it recontextualizes everything that came before. It makes the reader feel clever, not cheated, when looking back.
That's a really, really insightful distinction. An earned revelation versus just a shock. So what does this all mean for us as readers? When the chosen ending feels unearned or maybe even contradictory to the buildup, what kind of experience does that leave you with? It feels like all that emotional and intellectual investment you put into the story just fizzles out, doesn't it? Or worse, it feels like a bait and switch.
Oh, absolutely. It creates a profound sense of dissatisfaction, and frankly, it undermines the entire narrative journey. An ending that doesn't feel earned, it signals that the author either didn't fully commit to their own setup or perhaps, lost control of the various threads they introduced. The reader has invested their time, their emotions, expecting a payoff that makes sense within the established world of the story. When that payoff is missing or feels arbitrary, it can leave a lasting negative impression, makes the whole journey feel a bit pointless. It also raises an important question about how an author balances that desire for surprise with the necessity of narrative coherence and, crucially, emotional resonance.
Absolutely. The lingering feeling should definitely be one of closure, or at least understanding, not just confusion. Okay, so beyond the structural elements we've discussed, the reviewer also honed in on something many readers notice in thrillers, how relationships, especially romance, are often woven into the plot, sometimes feeling a little, well, convenient.
Yeah, this is a really common observation of the genre, isn't it? And the reviewer articulated it well. They pointed out that cops falling in love with potential victims seems to be the central fantasy of authors, be it male or female.
Hmm.
They gave specific examples from common tropes like the damsel in distress falls in love with the tragic but savior male, or the tired of running potential female victim will find solace and security with the male policeman. You know the type.
Uh-huh. Seen it 1,000 times.
Yeah, right. And we see this directly reflected in Blood Brother, apparently, with the main cop falling for a psychiatrist involved in the case, and the secondary cop's silence being explained because he was involved with the victim. Now, authors often lean on these tropes, maybe for narrative shorthand or to inject emotional stakes quickly. However, when they feel unearned or gratuitous, they become a form of narrative convenience that can really break a reader's immersion, especially for readers familiar with the genre who are looking for fresh takes, not tired cliches. This raises that important question about how genre tropes can either enhance or detract from a story. Do they genuinely serve the story's themes and character development, or do they feel like something inserted just because, well, that's what happens in these types of books, regardless of whether it actually fits?
That's a key distinction, isn't it? Whether it feels authentic to the story or merely obligatory, like ticking a box. It sounds like authors need to be really intentional when deciding to include these kinds of romantic subplots. Make sure they serve the core narrative. Okay, now let's turn to the mechanics of the writing itself. The review noted that Blood Brother was a dialogue driven, which on the surface can be fantastic in a thriller, right? Quick, snappy, keeps the pace moving.
Indeed, yeah, dialogue is a powerful tool. It can reveal character, advance plot, build tension really quickly. However, the review explains the specific challenges of this style in Blood Brother. It says, when there's so many characters talking, getting the hang of who is saying what becomes a challenge. And this is compounded by the fact we already discussed, that all the speakers are similar, meaning you cannot take the cue from their speaking style, as all of them speak the same language. This forces the reader to constantly check the earlier sentences to discover the speaker, which is just a major disruption to the reading flow. It pulls you right out. And this isn't just about clear attributions like he said, she said, though obviously that's a basic necessity. It goes back to developing truly distinct character voices, unique cadences, vocabulary, speech patterns, things that let the reader identify the speaker even without a direct tag. When all characters speak the same language, it just signals a lack of this crucial authorial attention to individual voice. And in a dialogue-heavy book, that can be, well, a fatal flaw. You want to hear the person speaking, not just read the words.
Totally. And that takes us directly to the overall pacing. The review had a pretty strong sentiment here, stating that Blood Brother is stretched for longer than necessary. It could have been 20% shorter and packed more punch. That's a significant critique regarding narrative economy.
It absolutely is. And the reviewer provided specific examples of sections that felt unnecessary, things that drew out the narrative without really adding value or advancing the plot meaningfully. These included the entire session with the female who tells the things that happened 10 years ago, which was apparently felt to be poorly integrated into the main timeline, and also the pathetic president arc, whatever that was.
A president arc, okay.
Yeah. These elements contributed to the feeling that the story had kind of lost its way and could have been far more impactful with tighter editing, maybe a stronger focus on the core mystery. So if we connect this to the bigger picture, how does clarity in dialogue and efficient pacing directly impact a thriller's ability to maintain tension and keep you, the reader, hooked? I mean, every word, every scene should ideally serve a purpose in building that suspense, right? When an author includes extraneous scenes or dialogue that doesn't advance the plot, it just dilutes the narrative thrust. It pulls the reader out of the immersive experience and slows down the tension. And tension is the lifeblood of any good thriller. It's really about respecting the reader's time and ensuring every page earns its place.
It's everything, really, isn't it? If you're constantly backtracking to figure out who's talking or wading through scenes that don't seem to advance the plot, that precious tension just bleeds out. It reminds me of those moments where you just want to skip ahead to the good part because you know the current scene isn't really going anywhere important. So wrapping up, we've taken a deep dive into what made Blood Brother a disappointing read for our listener. From the challenge of too many undifferentiated characters and a convoluted plot that, well, twisted itself into knots, to an ending that felt like a missed opportunity for true satisfaction and narrative choices that ultimately diluted its impact. What we've seen is just how crucial character distinction, plot cohesion, a truly satisfying resolution, and yeah, efficient pacing are to crafting a compelling thriller, one that holds its reader from beginning to end.
Yeah, and understanding these critiques, it doesn't just inform us about one specific book. It sharpens your own critical eye. It helps you discern what makes a truly compelling and memorable story in any genre, but especially when it comes to the high stakes of a good mystery or thriller. It's about recognizing the intricate craft behind the story and appreciating when an author truly masters it.
Absolutely. It empowers you as a reader, doesn't it, to articulate what works and what doesn't in the stories you encounter. So, for our provocative thought today, consider this. What is that delicate balance an author must strike between delivering unexpected twists and ensuring that, in hindsight, the conclusion feels earned, feels resonant with everything that came before? What do you think is the most crucial element an author needs to nail to deliver a truly impactful thriller, especially when the stakes and the characters are so incredibly high? We'd love for you to mull that over.